Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Patrick Schwerdtfeger.
Look at this arena. What a great place to be. Guys, good morning, welcome, and thanks for being here today. They did a pretty good job of pronouncing my last name. My last name's a bit of a disaster. It has 13 letters and only 3 vowels, and they're all E's. So for anyone who's curious, the right way to pronounce it is Schwerdtfeger. So come on, do it with me, guys. Schwerdtfeger. Ah, it's perfect. I live in California, so I probably should have run for governor, but I missed my shot, missed my window of opportunity. Anyway, I'm delighted to be here, and we, of course, are talking about technology. We're talking about leading change, and boy, there is a lot of stuff going on, and you are really at the center of the whole thing. The quality movement really is behind a lot of this in conjunction with technology, and that's really where I focus. But I do a lot of events. I do maybe 40 or 50 events every year, and they're kind of all around the world and in a whole variety of different industries. That's actually the thing I like most about what I do, is I'm always going to be having an opportunity to intersect with different people in different industries and different circumstances. So I'm always learning a little bit about all these industries, and that's why I was so happy to have the invitation to come and speak here for all of you, because this is a global audience we have here. I think we have over 275 people coming internationally, 48 countries, I think, represented. Unbelievable. People from all over the world, and of course, there's lots of different industries being represented as well. So I love that kind of an audience, and I'm thrilled to speak with you about the topic that I'm really passionate about, and the topic that I spend my days talking about, which is technology. And in technology, boy, I mean, it's revolutionizing every industry, and you don't need me to tell you that. You already know that for yourself. So I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch of charts today, I promise. Okay, but I would like to show you one or just a couple during the presentation, and we'll start with this one here. And what we're talking about is the cost of storing 1 terabyte of data. Okay, simple enough. So back in the year 2000, the cost of storing 1 terabyte of data was approximately $17,000. Does anyone want to hazard a guess on what we're going to pay for the same thing in 2 years, a year and a half? Just yell it out if you have any ideas. $17. What else? $500, $100. Anyone else? $12. All right, well, the answer is $3. So this might be my best slide. Because seriously, just think about it for a second. You all know this. I mean, you've heard a million people say that this has been happening, but what we're part of is truly an exponential environment. And when people think about these exponential curves, they always think about how they go up and to the right, which is what they do, of course. But the inverse of that is that the cost of any one capability goes down to the floor. Right? It just gets cheaper and cheaper. Right? And by the way, it's not just data processing. It's data processing, data bandwidth, and data storage. Those are the 3 pillars of technology. Right? It's data processing, data bandwidth, and data storage. And they're all following this same path. So it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So that's really the genesis, if you will, of the Internet of Things, the IoT. Some people refer to that as M to M. Right? There's estimates today that we're going to have north of 50 billion devices connected through the Internet by 2020. It makes sense. If it's cheaper to accumulate data and store data and process data and move data around, it only makes sense that people are going to start measuring more and more things. Right? And then, of course, I did a few events with Schneider Electric recently. They're leaders in the industrial IoT space, the IIoT. Right? And we have all these different sensors being manufactured for every conceivable purpose. Right? In every industry, there's sensors coming out to measure all sorts of different things, and that's going to explode once we have the deployment of the 5G rollout, 5G mobile technology rollout this year and next year. Because, guys, it's at a point where the sensors in some cases can get energy straight from a Wi-Fi network, so it's wireless. They get energy from the Wi-Fi network, enough to power them to take whatever measurements they're taking and then send that back to the receiver, which means all you have to do, it's a little plastic device. You can put those everywhere. They're going to cost next to nothing, $1 or $2 a piece. So you can imagine there's going to be an explosion of sensors. And all of this data, it's translating into an explosion of data, right? And all that data is being aggregated on these enterprise software applications, right? You got ERP, you got CRM, and so many of the other programs that you all are using every day. And so there's this new science of data visualization and dashboards, and how do we look at all this data? How do we interpret all this data and figure out what to do with it? Right, the big data revolution. And what was the early winner in the big data space? You know, for a long time, the big data space, like 2011, 2012, people weren't making any money, really. In fact, they did studies, and every year, the average, I remember in 2012, I think it was, the average ROI of a big data initiative was minus 45%. So they were losing money. They were going through these huge amounts of data, not finding much. Right, so where were the early winners? We're going to talk today about the early winners of different technologies, including artificial intelligence and blockchain. We'll do that later. But the early winner for the big data space was predictive maintenance, right? Because you could put sensors for, say, vibration and heat on a machine, which would allow you to anticipate when it's likely to go down before it actually goes down, which means you can fix it on your schedule rather than waiting until the entire line comes to a stop unexpectedly. Right, so that was an early winner. That's been implemented all over the place. And one of my favorite examples of that, actually, is with the Airbus A380 aircraft, which actually is not going to be manufactured anymore. You probably saw that news story, which is sad. This is an incredible airplane. But anyway, this plane runs on these 4 Rolls-Royce engines. They're called Trent engines. Those engines are filled with sensors to the extent that they generate over 10 terabytes of data per engine every 30 minutes. Imagine. Right, 10 terabytes of data with the sensors that are inside the engine. So what happens to that data? Well, it gets sent down. See, the engines are full of sensors, including they have cameras in there that operate at 2,000 degrees Celsius, which means if something goes wrong while the plane's flying, they can tap into the camera that's in the engine while the thing's in the air and look around and see what's going on. Right, the diagnostic capabilities are unbelievable. Right, so all this data comes back to Rolls-Royce Central, where they can diagnose this stuff, and that allowed Rolls-Royce to start selling very highly profitable service contracts to the airlines, because instead of the airline trying to figure out what's going on and having a different team for every type of airline or having a different team for every type of aircraft, Rolls-Royce could say, look, we'll do all the 380s at this entire airport, and we know exactly what's going wrong with them, so we can fix them faster and cheaper, which means that they could sell these contracts cheaper than the airlines could do it themselves. And meanwhile, today it contributes over 50% of the profitability of Rolls-Royce. Guys, this alone, we're going to cover a ton of case histories today, but this alone, we're talking about a product company. It's a product company using data to sell highly profitable services, which today have more than 50% of their overall profitability. That's a model. Right? How can you do that? In all of these different case histories, we'll talk about a lot of them today, always ask yourself, can we do this? Can we use data to do something similar? Can we offer a service that we've never offered before because we have access to data that other people don't? Right? The value of your data, the value of the potential of your data. So anyway, we've seen huge implications of this data revolution in the manufacturing space. Right? Of course, we've seen implications in mining. Really cool. I mean, there too, they got the drill bits. They actually put the sensors on the drill bits themselves so that while it's drilling in real time, they can take measurements and do some underground real-time geological modeling and optimize the drill. Right? It's really wild. Right? So of course that's had implications in the oil and gas industry. Especially, they can drill at an angle, right? The things they can do today is unbelievable. But it's all driven by data. And then, of course, we've seen big changes in the retail space, right? Everyone today talks about the Amazon effect, right? And that's had huge implications, of course, in the way people are doing warehousing and distribution. Data's having a huge play in the whole global logistics, right? Transport logistics all around the world. One of the most interesting areas to follow This is what I do. Guys, I am a nerd. I'm a geek. I love this stuff. So I'm always looking at different things to follow. What's happening? Where are people using the technology? And one of the most interesting areas is called facilities management. Right? So we're talking about a facility just like this. This room, this arena probably has thousands of sensors in different places looking at different things. Right? One of the best examples of that today is the Hudson Yards facility, which is going up in New York City. Actually, a lot of it, they just had a grand opening for a large part of it. It's not complete. 19 towers. It's a huge complex, and it's built on top of a rail line which they never even shut down. The engineering accomplishment there was unbelievable, what they did. But once it's finished in 2021, it's going to be the most censored residential environment in the world.